Have you ever met someone so drunk on a tiny sliver of power they start thinking the laws of nature, property, and basic decency exist just to amuse them? Yeah, well, I have. Her name was Carol, and she anointed herself Queen of the Mountain Shadows HOA. The minute she got the gavel like that, meant the woods, the dirt, and everybody's sanity belonged to her. But let me tell you, the biggest mistake Carol ever made wasn't running for HOA president or even picking me as her target. It was thinking she could bully a man whose entire job is knowing exactly where the line is both on a map and in life. I'm Alex Porter, and if you ever need to know the difference between what somebody wants the law to say and what's actually carved in the county records, I'm your guy. I've spent my life as a land surveyor wrestling with GPS satellites, plat maps, older than disco, and lawyers who'd argue with a stop sign. What I wanted more than anything was a little peace, a dusty old cabin in the trees, no noise but wind and birds, just a small place of my own. I thought I'd found it too tucked away on the edge of mountain shadows, a sleepy community of 20 homes, and an HOA I figured was too old and tired to care. That changed fast. The first time I met Carol, she hit me with a barrage of rules about lawn heights and fire safety like she was reading from the book of Revelations. I'd only emailed the HOA to be polite, just letting them know I'd be out of state for a work project, cabin empty. Next thing I know, I'm getting an itemized to-do list for my absence compliance. I told her, look, I'd already handled everything and hit the road figuring I could forget about it. Turns out the woman was just getting started. She wasn't looking for compliance. She was itching for a war. Came home a week early, dead tired, dreaming of my porch and a beer, and what do I see? Police lights flashing through the pines, Carol standing in my driveway, waving a clipboard like she's directing traffic at the Oscars. The deputy asked for my ID because Carol reported a trespasser. My heart's racing, hands shaking, and I'm thinking, is this real life? I show the guy my license, tell him it's my house. He checks, confirms with the county records. Carol starts sputtering about me being gone too long, how I'm a security risk, and how she'd performed a wellness check on my place. Now, it doesn't take a detective to know she'd been inside. Later, I spot a muddy footprint by the door, one that didn't belong to me. I felt sick. It's one thing to get a cranky email. It's another to realize someone's been snooping through your things while you're gone. I try to reason with the HOA board, write a calm, clear letter, outlining what happened. The police report the trespassing. Their response, pure gaslight. They quoted some half-baked bylaw about emergency maintenance and compliance checks. Then, just for good measure, they fined me $200 and accused me of hostility toward law enforcement. Here's where things go from bizarre to outright dangerous. A couple days later, I catch some kid lurking by my woodpile. Turns out it's Carol's nephew, Bradley. Claims Carol said he could use the trail on my land. Only problem there is no community trail on my deed. She just made it up. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just harassing me, she was inventing property rights out of thin air and inviting her family to treat my land like a public park. You know that feeling when you stop being scared and just get focused? That's where I landed. I pulled out all my professional gear, GPS, GIS software, legal records. I went to the county archives, pulled every plat map, every deed, every dusty bylaw from the moment the first nail went into these woods. I built a digital reconstruction of the entire subdivision, tracing every property line to the steel survey pins driven into the earth 50 years ago. And the deeper I dug, the more the whole scam unraveled. First off, my cabin lot 1 wasn't even legally bound to the HOA. My deed predated the HOA's formation by a year. Nobody could enforce those new rules on me, not legally, not if they wanted to take it to court. That was strike 1. Strike 2. The so-called community trail was nothing but a narrow power line easement for utility workers only. But then came the real bombshell. As I plotted out the survey markers and compared them to where fences, houses, and the clubhouse actually stood, I saw it. The entire neighborhood was off. The physical boundary lines everyone thought were gospel were about 15 feet east of where the law actually put them. You want cinematic? Here you go. Carol's beloved rose garden, her kingdom, her pride, her joy was half built on my land. The HOA clubhouse porch squarely on Mr. Henderson's property. That fancy stone sign at the entrance she bragged about, it wasn't even on HOA land, it was sitting on county property. I could have gone straight to the county or threatened a lawsuit, but that's not my style. I wanted the truth on full display. So I called up David, my old friend who's a real estate attorney, sharper than a box of tacks and loves a good underdog story. He's giddy when I show him what I've got, calls it a legal atom bomb. We cook up a plan. I'd present my findings at a community meeting, walk everyone through the history, the maps, the evidence all at once. If Carol tried to interrupt or deny, I'd hand her a cease and desist letter right there, witnessed by everyone. I printed invitations, dropped them in every mailbox, didn't say I was hosting. Just that a resident expert would explain the true legal boundaries of Mountain Shadows. Predictably, Carol called me, tried to flex, insisted she'd moderate. I smiled and let her. Let the queen walk right into her own trial. On the night of the meeting, the clubhouse was packed. People were buzzing, curious, maybe even a little nervous. Carol made her grand entrance, power, blazer, helmet, hair, attitude for days, and opened the meeting with a 10-minute speech on standards and property values. She finished with a sneer, handed the floor to me, and crossed her arms, daring me to make a scene. So I did. I walked them through the legal timeline, showed my deed, the survey, plat, the actual county filings, laid out how my property was exempt, how the fines were void, how the so-called authority Carol waved around like a sword was built on sand. The room started to murmur. Then I dropped the maps, showed them where the clubhouse porch really sat, where the entrance sign stood, and finally how Carol's rose garden sprawled a good chunk over onto my land. When I played the security footage, her nephew cutting across my yard, Carol herself measuring from the fence and dismissing the survey pin as preposterous, the crowd went from murmurs to stunned silence. Carol tried to explode, called me a liar, said I doctored the evidence. I handed her the cease and desist, told her she had 14 days to move her roses, or I'd have them hauled away as debris. The legal grounds were airtight, the facts irrefutable. The room erupted not with outrage, but relief and laughter. Mr. Henderson, the quiet neighbor she'd ignored for years, slapped me on the back and grinned like a kid. Carol, for the first time in years, had nothing. The board resigned. The HOA called a new meeting and with my help started fixing the records, apologizing for the mess, and ironically turning to me for advice on how to handle property lines for real. Carol, meanwhile, faded from power in the most undramatic way possible, ostracized, pitied, left alone with her stubborn pride in a now patchy rose garden. She sold her house a few months later, vanished into the mist, and honestly, no one missed her. The HOA under Mr. Henderson and some of the newer families actually got its act together. I licensed them a real trail easement in exchange for never paying dues again. The clubhouse was properly situated. Peace finally returned. So what's the lesson? Bullies like Carol don't need a crown. They just need people too busy, scared, or polite to check the facts. They thrive in the shadows, and the only thing you need to beat them is daylight and the guts to say, "Show me where it's written." Sometimes justice is as simple as a guy with a map and the courage to stand up when the lines are drawn wrong. So let me ask you, what rule in your life have you just accepted, never checked, just because someone in a cheap suit told you so? Maybe it's time to take a closer look. Drop your thoughts below. When does authority cross the line, and who decides where the real boundaries are? I'd love to hear your stories. And hey, if you've ever tangled with an HOA tyrant, you know you're in good company.